everyone, and welcome to another episode of LA Legal. I'm Liana, and I am joined by the matching duo, Nima and Josh. So please introduce yourself to our viewers, what you do, and then we'll get started.
Thank you so much. My name is Joshua Ritter. I am a lawyer. I am a criminal defense lawyer who's now starting to get into personal injury work. I'm a partner at Eldabe Ritter Trial Lawyers. I've been there for about a year. And thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
I gotta ask, do you love personal injury now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Qualified yes.
Okay.
I would love it more when I get more comfortable with it. But it's one of those things where you've been doing one thing for so long, you think that you're going to be able to easily segue into something new, and then you find out there's a bunch that you don't know that you didn't even realize you don't know. And so there's a little bit of that learning curve that I'm still dealing with, but I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
Good. You're going back to torts. Back to law
Yeah,
school.
exactly.
I gotta sing Josh's praises a little. Sometimes in PI you don't have the best quality lawyering, but this gentleman next to me is a badass former deputy DA, criminal defense lawyer, tons of trial experience. So we're super excited to have him live on the podcast. He's actually got his own podcast, which is super successful as well. So he's a pro.
Look at that. You're being modest.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's get started. Unfortunately, we're not talking about anything criminal, but we are talking about Prince Harry. So I'll do a really
Wait, I
quick...
thought we were talking about Prince Andrew.
No,
I'm out.
no, no,
no.
no. Maybe next time we'll go on his
Yeah.
podcast to talk about that. So I'll do a little intro and then we can dive right in.
Sure.
So Prince Harry sued the Associated Newspapers (ANL) last year over an article published in the Daily Mail that alleged Prince Harry offered to pay for police protection only after bringing a separate legal fight against Britain's government. The article was titled "Exclusive: How Prince Harry Tried to Keep His Legal Fight with the Government Over Police Bodyguards a Secret." Then, just minutes after the story broke, his PR machine tried to put a positive spin on the dispute. That's a very long title, by the way. So clearly in Britain, they don't know about
Basically
clickbait,
defamation. Yeah.
Basically. So London's High Court ruled that the Mail report was defamatory. It paved the way for Harry to take the case forward. And of course, this is one of the several brought in recent years by him and his wife Meghan Markle against the tabloid press. They have repeatedly cited media intrusion as part of the reason for stepping back from their royal duties and moving to California altogether. What are your guys' thoughts?
Well, I'll start, and obviously we're talking about the Royals. People love talking about the Royals, so we're talking about them. We're going to get into the legal weeds a little, talk about defamation law here, but, I think it really kind of all stems from the prince's adversarial relationship with the British tabloids. I mean, they've been very aggressive. He blames them for killing his mother. So, obviously going to be an interesting case. And the first time in many, many, many years that a member of the royal family has testified in court. So I'm excited to talk about this one.
Yeah, he's been very vocal, like even about his hatred, towards the just the tabloid press over across the pond. But I feel like even more so after he married Meghan Markle, and so much has happened to them together that people love to hate them.
Yeah. It's funny to me, though, because they've taken this position of leave us alone. We want to be left alone. We don't want to be bothered by the press. I mean, part of this lawsuit is about the media harassing them. And that's not to say that I don't think that they have some legitimate issues at hand here. But at the same time, you're putting yourself squarely in the middle of the press by even bringing this lawsuit. And this isn't about money, right? I mean, this isn't about, it's obviously about them trying to make a point, but what is that point? Even when you were explaining what the lawsuit was about, it's a little difficult for me to wrap my head around it because, whether or not he had a conversation about if he's going to have private security, if he's going to pay for it or not. End of the day, is this something to bring a lawsuit about? Now, technically, does it satisfy the elements of defamation in the UK? Perhaps there's some merit to it. Sounds like a judge thinks there's enough to move forward on a lawsuit. But to me, it's obviously about something else, and I'm not quite even figuring out what that something else is for them.
Well, at least two of us are on the same
Well, have
page.
you guys seen the South Park episode? If we can maybe cut it in without a copyright violation. There was a South Park episode about
Really?
them, and they go on this world tour. This is Harry and Meghan Markle, and they're like, leave us alone. We want our privacy, but they're just, all over the press and media and giving all these interviews. It's like, come on, do you really want your privacy,
I
or
agree
are you
with
trying to
you
milk
guys.
it to make a lot of money in a Netflix documentary?
They moved to the United States and continued this like parade of like, now we're on Netflix, then we do Oprah. I mean, it's you moved away to a different country literally to be away from the media, and then you bring these lawsuits over there in the UK, right? So now you're back in the public eye, and then you're doing the same thing sort of over here, and now you're just everywhere. So I agree with you, it's very bizarre to me, always has been. But as far as this lawsuit, I'm actually really interested to talk about it, because when I was reading it, I'm like, what is happening here? Who's suing who and for what? Like, I agree. It was just such a weird, sort of bizarre fact pattern of like, are we really going to pursue the media for security detail? Right.
Right. I mean, right. Defamation lawsuits don't usually make headlines. I mean, the last time we talked about a defamation lawsuit with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and that made a lot of headlines because it involved the people that it did. But it also, I think, to anyone was pretty clear why that lawsuit was brought. He's being accused of, abusing someone, of being of taking part in domestic violence. That is obviously something he cares about, whether or not that's true, whether or not he's being defamed. And so you can understand for other reasons as well why he would bring that lawsuit. But like you said here, I'm not, what are we trying to clear up exactly? I understand where he's saying they got it wrong, or where they lied, if that's what he's actually claiming. But still, what huge point are we trying to correct in the media?
My takeaway is that he is saying that the tabloid, this article was very much on brand with the tabloids, and that they're making him seem like a liar. But I actually went and pulled up this article and read it like 10 times, because I was like, if I had read it not knowing that there was a lawsuit coming, I would have been like, okay, and just moved on with it. I feel like it became a bigger deal than it should have been.
Yeah, obviously, look, it started with the phone hacking, right? And that was like a huge scandal over there. And then you have, basically it comes down to this, they're no longer, officially part of the royal family, but they want security, right? And they want the British government to pay for it. And, whether they offer to reimburse them, I mean, it's basically like they want security that's not offered to the rest of the British population. And it's really a question of, did they offer to reimburse the British government for it? And that's it. You're right. It's not Johnny Depp. We're not talking about sex. We're not talking about violence. We're not talking about all sorts of drugs, defecating in the bed. It's certainly not as salacious as that. But apparently, because of who it is, it's a big deal in the UK.
I love that Johnny Depp comes up in every single episode we've done so far. Like, in somehow, some way, he comes up.
Let's not forget, Johnny Depp originally filed in Europe, and he lost his defamation case. I'm sure we're going to talk about it. The defamation laws in Europe favor, really favor plaintiffs. I mean, it's here, you have First Amendment issues, you got to prove malice if you're a public figure, all the things we learned in con law. Over there, the burden is on the defendant to prove that the statement's actually true. So, different burden, much easier to bring defamation cases over there. So.
Right. Okay. So, as far as what the article sort of cites, right? Again, you mentioned the phone hacking that happened between like 98 and like early 2000, right? So then, there's all these claims about, okay, well, there's got the statute is passed, he can't bring that up, but then they're saying this happened as late as 2018 as well. So they're trying to bring up these phone hackings. And then, it's the security details. So there's just like a lot happening here, and he's suing everybody in his past. So there's like 5 or 6 lawsuits out there, all of them kind of intertwined, but also separate. So what are your guys' thoughts about sort of bringing all of these lawsuits separately, right? Should he have just honed in on just one and really like push forward against the tabloids? Or do you think this is some kind of a strategy where like, okay, let's just sue everyone in our path and see what happens and bulldoze through the tabloids?
I again think that he's not doing this for traditional reasons that someone would bring a lawsuit, even a defamation lawsuit. I think he's making a statement. I think these are shots across the bow. Of course, he's going to sue anybody and everybody he thinks he can sue on this, because these are statement lawsuits rather than lawsuits actually trying to get to damages. I don't think they really care about the money
Right.
at the end of the day. So they're making a statement. And if I'm being really cynical, I think this is probably even a little more calculated from a publicity PR perspective, that they, they do the interview with Oprah. He does the book release. Now there's these lawsuits. I mean, I'm probably going to get sued for libel now from him, but I think that there's a calculation behind all of this and why they're doing it that's far beyond the words that are in the lawsuit itself.
No, I agree. I mean, obviously, Johnny Depp wanted to clear his name, and he absolutely did, and that was the way to do so, right? You look at like Alex Jones, right? Those victims were actually harmed because of those defamatory statements, you're talking about the Prince and Meghan Markle. I agree. This is like a lawsuit that is telling the British tabloids to back off. It's kind of like a picture thrown up high on the inside. It's really sending a message. And I don't think this is really about money. I think whatever money they make, they're probably going to donate to charity. But I think now the tabloids are going to be a lot more careful in how they cover Harry and Meghan because of this really kind of litigious posture that he's taken.
I will say something different too, and this isn't televised, right? These trials.
No,
I don't think they have
no.
to. So that's a big difference too. Is that yes,
No
he's
jury.
having to testify, but he's not really testifying in the public, so he doesn't have that same scrutiny that Amber Heard and Johnny Depp went through, where everyone was watching every single move. I mean, people were changing their opinions and going to their respective corners very strongly about how they felt about that trial as it unfolded. He doesn't have to deal with that. It's reporters talking about what took place, and he's got his own people putting their spin on it. But I think it's the threshold that he had to pass in order to bring the lawsuit is a little less it having taken place in the UK than
Well,
here.
in fact, he actually petitioned to have all of the records sealed, and he wanted confidentiality, right? So he really wants this in the public eye, but not really. He doesn't want people to have access to what happens internally, but he kind of does. That's why, to me, it's just, I'm telling you, this particular claim was just really bizarre, because I was like, what are we trying to achieve here? What's the end goal? And I'm not quite sure where.
Well, look, I mean, look, he's showing up in person. He is insisting on going forward. This isn't just, sending a strongly worded demand and hoping to settle the case. I mean, he's pushing the case all the way. Obviously, there's no jury, right? I mean, that's something that's very different. It's not going to be televised. It's going to be a bench trial. So I think a judge is going to view this very differently than jurors might. They're not going to be enthralled necessarily with a celebrity party or the fact that, this is a former member of the royal family. And I think it's going to be easier for him to prove this case. I mean, look, there's statute of limitations issues. I think it's a 6-year statute over there. So some of the claims may be time barred. He's arguing that there's some sort of agreement. It seems like a tolling agreement, where, the royal family agreed not to pursue these cases, and he wasn't a party to that agreement, or some sort of delayed discovery type argument. It didn't really work, but I think that there's enough claims for him to still move forward. And I think if I had to guess, based on the judge's ruling so far, I think he's going to win the case. I do.
Yeah, I think the judge has been very favorable so far.
And then if he loses, there's not a countersuit, right? So, I mean, the downside in losing it, I suppose, is whatever kind of media spin is put on that. But at the same time, I think because this was sort of a statement lawsuit, in their view, Team Prince and Meghan view, perhaps this is already a win, that they're able to just kind of get these things in front of the public where they felt that they were wronged.
Right.
Yeah, there's no slap motion like we would have here, or Amber Heard obviously countersued, got a judgment against Depp's lawyer, for some of the statements that he made about the LAPD incident just a few blocks away from here. So yeah, there's really sort of a no risk as far as them getting a judgment against him, and I think that's why the tabloids, some of them have taken the position they've actually made some admissions here that they've, the statements may actually be defamatory, and that obviously the phone hacking happened as well.
Right. So just to kind of clear it up for our viewers, let's talk a little bit about the Police Act of 1996, right? Because this is where kind of it all comes from. He argued that under this act, he's allowed to pay for security privately out of his own pocket, but he's denied that, and so this is sort of where it all came back. I don't think we talked about it, so just to clarify, he offers to pay, or he claims that he offered to pay for his own personal security detail. Of course, after he and Meghan Markle stepped down from their royal duties, they're not entitled to the same level of security detail. And so, this whole thing really is to clear his name. Now, he claims that the media is misleading the public, right? And so I think because there's such a big love-hate relationship with him and Meghan Markle, maybe this is his way, just like Johnny Depp, to clear his name, except it's far less severe, right? Nobody's accusing him of being abusive or sexually abusive or violent or whatnot, but to him, maybe this is just as important. I mean, he's still Prince Harry, right? I mean, he's...
Well, yeah, I mean, like, it's an issue, right? We've all seen people with, security details, right? You can hire your own security, right? You look at the Kardashians, no matter where they go, they have their security, but that's private security. There's some instances, some law enforcement agencies, LAPD sheriffs, you might be able to hire off duty. But generally, you're not going to be able to hire federal agents, It doesn't matter if you're willing to pay. You're not going to get FBI. You're not going to get DEA. You just can't do it. So he's basically asking for something that really is not available to any other members of the public, regardless of paying for it. It's not about paying. You just can't get it. And I think that's what he asked for.
He did. Well, also the article makes it seem, and I think this is really where it hinges, that because he initially asked for it, but it seems like he didn't until this lawsuit was commenced, that the sort of assumption is that he wants the taxpayers to pay for it, right? And so I think that's what he's trying to clear, I think, in terms of like misleading the public, where like, no, I'm actually willing to pay. I'm not asking you guys to, but
it's about his image. It's about he doesn't want that image of still being on the taxpayer dime, or still kind of being treated like royalty, even though they stepped away from it in a very public sort of way, which brings up a really good question. Where are the damages here? Again, to go back to Johnny Depp, he suffered tremendous damages reputationally as an actor. He was saying, I cannot get these roles. I cannot get movie roles that are paying me millions upon millions of dollars. I was once one of the biggest actors in Hollywood, and now because of this article, I can't get that kind of work. What are the damages here? You said some sort of dispute about who's going to pay for my private security, which, by the way, the average person doesn't have, so already puts you into an elite stratus that none of us can identify with. But who's going to pay for that, the taxpayer or me? Is where is he suffering harm there other than his image? And so I think this is just about him correcting his image in a very public way.
Well, any harm that he may suffer is sort of in the future. It's future harm, right? And he talks about it because his family and his kids, they don't have the same level as same security level as what's his brother's name? The other prince's kids.
Andrew. I keep going back to Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew.
Can we talk about Jeff Epstein?
Let's just talk Andrew.
No,
oh my God, what's the brother's name? William. There we go. William and the other kids, right? And so, but again, these are all sort of hypotheticals. There's no fact, right? Nobody's been harmed, thankfully. His children are safe. Everyone's safe. But his argument is that when I come back, for whatever reasons, I don't have the same intel. My private security won't have the same sort of high-level clearance, and so we are in danger for physical harm.
Sounds like speculative damages to me, Yeah. Which is obviously you can't collect them. But yeah, I mean, obviously like Johnny Depp, right? You had, folks from Disney, and he argued that he lost whatever Pirates. I think was it six? Okay.
Which apparently is back to being in the works.
And then like every endorsement, right, aside from Dior. So I mean, he had like some very significant damages. Yeah. Obviously Alex Jones. People were showing up at the victims' houses. But yeah, what harm has Prince Harry suffered? If anything, he's probably gotten more attention, and more media.
Did he take a hit to his book sales because of this article that talked about whether or not he's going to be paying for security? I imagine, I know they have different laws and they're far more favorable to the plaintiff over there, but still, you would imagine they have to show some sort of, okay, fine, we've arrived at all these elements to say that they're at fault. Now, what are your damages? You would expect they're going to have to prove something somehow other than it really hurt my feelings.
Yeah. Well, even his image, what are the damages? He's kind of done that all on his own, right? Whatever hit his image has taken, it's not because of this. It's certainly not because of this article. I think it's been the media tour he's gone on and all the things he said about his family, his wife, so he's kind of done that all on his own. He
Yeah,
doesn't need these
I don't
guys
think this
to...
article was the tipping point in how
No.
the British people felt about them.
No, absolutely not.
Well, yeah, I can't wait for the damages expert in this case,
I wonder if they'll bring one.
I mean, they have to have something, or he's gonna have to be his own damages witness, right? And say, I don't know what could he possibly, I've lost sleep, worrying about, the possibility.
His kids don't even go out there. Every time
I know, Megan doesn't
I think
go
the
either.
last time he went there was for the unveiling of the Princess Diana statue, and he was there on his own. I don't think the kids, the wife has stepped foot there since
Even
they've
at the
moved.
funeral, right? He went
Yeah,
alone. Huh?
yeah. Well, I don't think she was allowed.
Oh, there we go.
So
See, if the phone hacking had survived, I think we'd be having a very different conversation, right? Then you can kind of understand damages and actual harm and how you would be
that's a
feeling.
whole privacy issue, right?
Right.
I mean, here,
And a lot more tangible and a lot more, easier for people to wrap their heads around. Whereas this, it's kind of a big nothing.
Yeah, and we keep going back to debt, but again, just if you kind of look at that case, there was all this sort of alleged defamation that happened. The parties enter into a settlement, right? There was all their divorce. Then Amber Heard comes back. She makes an additional defamatory statement, the Washington Post op-ed, and this whole thing kind of reminds me of what happened here. Like, he really had an axe to grind with the tabloids. The claims were time barred. Then they come out with this new defamatory article, and he's like, you know what? I've had it, but I'm sure if it were up to him, yeah, we'd be talking about.
didn't Meghan Markle have a defamation suit too, or didn't she sue somebody? Was it the Daily Mail?
Did
No?
she?
I don't know. She was suing somebody.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. That's why I felt like this was more of like a let me piggyback off of that, but I could be wrong. I just know they're suing everyone in their path.
Well, like, he really thinks that really his wife has been treated unfairly in particular. So, this might be is this a Will Smith situation? I don't know. He's going to go up there and slap someone, the Daily Mail or whatever British tabloid there is. But I think a lot of it too is kind of to protect her. And look, he's got to go home and look her in the eye. So maybe this is...
Yeah, maybe he's doing what he's got to do.
Yeah.
Happy, what is it? Happy life, happy wife, happy life,
yeah.
right? So who knows? But okay, what are your thoughts, since you brought that up, on sort of the treatment of Meghan Markle, right? Because, we all know what happened with Princess Diana, the conspiracy theories and everything. But then, we have Miss Markle, who heads over there, things go south. She comes out here. She does an interview with Oprah. All sorts of claims. So what are your thoughts?
Look, man, I don't know if the allegations of racism are true. Look, this is a hard family to, I think, marry into. There's whatever the expectations are, whatever the public scrutiny is. I mean, I feel like it's the men that date the Kardashians. It's just there's a significant fail rate. Not because of anything that they've done.
You really are prepared and ready to go with your reality TV.
I got my one-liners ready for
You're
this.
celeb.
But look, it's hard. These are like members of royalty, and they're used to living a certain way. And not to say she's just an ordinary person, an actress, and kind of married into this family. I think there's a lot of resistance, and I think she did experience some of that. Obviously, look, I'm going to be Team America in all this. I'm just going to put my cards on the table. So,
yeah.
I support Meghan.
I think she really lost the American and British public, I will say, when she made claims that she didn't know who Prince Harry was, and she didn't know that the Queen was his grandma, and that she would have to abide by certain... I mean, you don't have to be a princess or a royal or really anyone to know that if you're going to marry into this family, there are going to be lots of rules you have to follow. And so that's where she personally lost me. But other than that, claims of racism and all the other crazy things that she talked about, who knows, Sure. But I think that was a tipping point for her, I think, when she just kind of discuss these very weird things. I've never Googled him. I didn't know who he was. I'm like, really? Really? What are your thoughts?
I know everybody's got problems. I know even the royal family's got problems. But when you are part of one of the most privileged, wealthy families on the face of the earth, keep your problems to yourself. You know what I mean? I don't need to the woe is me story doesn't go very far with me, or I think most people in the general public, to hear how you were having a real tough time in a palace, by the way, and that you're going to give your sob story to Oprah in this palatial estate where the interview is taking place. It's really hard for us to hear your violin start to sing when you're surrounded by all of this wealth and privilege and access and everything else that most people are trying to figure out how to make their car payment. Right. That a lot of these, and I'm not saying that they don't have the problems, I'm just saying a lot of those problems kind of fall on very skeptical ears.
Mm-hmm. And mind you, this was during COVID, so a lot of people are, unemployed at this point,
losing their jobs,
losing family members and whatnot, and here she is, in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, I mean, Josh said, the violin, but are we all getting played, like a fiddle here? Is this like a masterful PR move where, all of a sudden all eyes are on the prince and, look, they're making a lot of money on that Netflix documentary and the book sales are through the roof and, people say that this is even Trump with his legal problems.
Oh, I mean, I'm
not trying to make it political, but people say, listen, say what you want about him. He's done a masterful job, dealing with the media. Mm-hmm. And is this part of the same kind of PR playbook? I don't know, but that's what folks are saying.
Well, could this be in some way some kind of a money grab, right? Because all these lawsuits, right, all these financial damages, but I mean, they are no longer working royals. Meghan Markle is not an actress. I mean, what are they really kind of doing, right? My understanding is that they're not making money from the palace.
I thought suits, so aren't you going to get the residuals now with the new agreement and everything?
Oh, is that
no, that's writers, but this is
I watch Suits in the background every morning, so I'm paying her salary. Yeah. No, JK. But, I mean, is this just maybe a way to get money from wherever they can? What do you guys think?
Again, I think I'm being cynical, but I think a lot of the reasons we are talking about them lately seem to be self-generated. Mm-hmm. It does not seem to be organic news that they're making. It's news that they're generating and pushing. The same thing with this lawsuit. I'm not saying that it's meritless, but it does seem like it. If you were going to be planning all of this, it seems like the timing is about right to continue to keep your name out there. The book, the Netflix, I know some of that's taken off. Some of it, I think their Spotify deal fell apart. Yeah. So some of it isn't taking off and finding the traction that they thought that they might have. And one of you asked a really good question. I don't know what they do. What do they do? I don't know if they're doing anything. I know he wrote a book, but as far as like contributing and creating and building, I don't know if they're doing much of anything other than just making sure that we're continuing to talk about them.
Exactly. Well, maybe they're taking a page out of the Kardashian playbook, right? Because they're constantly in the media for all sorts of
maybe.
God knows no what
look,
reasons.
I mean, he's come under scrutiny here for some. We haven't talked about this, a different legal problem, but he came here on a visa. There were some allegations, some admissions of drug use, and normally that is a bar to admission. And so the question is, a lot of people are asking here, obviously very different type of cases. Look, is he being treated differently? Is he being treated unfairly? If you're an admitted drug user, you can't get a visa, and if you do have one, that visa is going to be revoked. So I do know he's doing that, so dealing with that legal issue as well.
Well, maybe he should just keep quiet and stay in his beautiful estate in Santa Barbara and just zip it.
I just don't think it's the end of them. I just think when they're done with this, they're going to find some other reason to pop up in the news again and cleverly try to cloak themselves in victimhood, which I think is what they're trying to do here, and it's just going to be this never-ending saga.
And then before we let Josh go, if you can let everyone know where to find you on social media, Antonio, your podcast as well, you got to check it out.
Thank you.
One of the best true crime ones by far.
Thank you very much. And Nima's been on it a few times, and it's been very successful every time he has, and we appreciate that. It's called The Sidebar, presented by True Crime Daily. You can find it on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, or I'm on Instagram, Twitter, which is now X if you haven't heard, at Joshua Ritter ESQ, or you can find me at joshuaritter.com.
And thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.